Another hot one here in Lower Alabama on a Monday afternoon. Heat index 107, 106, somewhere around there. And I got something I need to cook, but I don't want to cook it in the house. And it needs some tender loving care. And the best way to do that is to give it the tender loving care that only cast iron can give it. We like to buy a Boston butt. Now there's no way Shirley and I can eat a Boston butt to do the whole thing, cook the whole thing at one time. So we'll buy one and we'll cut it into portions, and we generally crock pot them. And it's a great way to do the Boston butt. And but rather than do anything in the cabin cooking wise that's generating that much heat for that long, I'll just do it out here in the cast iron. And I'll resituate, I'll show you what I got going on inside the pot, and then we'll get the Dutch oven set up on a makeshift make-do little table that I've got in the background that it's kind of a family heirloom. I'll tell you about that. Well, for those of you that are new to cast iron cooking, or you've never done it and you want to do some outdoor stuff like this, a pair of leather gloves is a wonderful thing to always have with you, because things get hot. Now what I've done, I've taken those 3 pieces of Boston butt and seasoned them the way we like them. And salt and pepper. I put garlic powder, kicking chicken. I'm going to give you my secret ingredient. Use a little kicking chicken on it, and then put liquid smoke and Dale's seasoning. We're going to put the lid on this. We're going to get it set up and get some coals on it and under it. For those of you that are familiar with black iron cooking, this is old hat information for you. For those of you that are new to this or haven't been around it much, the number 10 Dutch oven, and these things come in different sizes. The thing that sets it apart from a cast iron Dutch oven that you use cooking on the stove in the house, these come with these little legs, and the number 10, depending on what you're trying to cook, and when you buy a Lodge, I can't say for any other brand of cast iron, but when you buy a Lodge, and Lodge is not paying me a dime to do this and talk about their name brand, but when you buy the Lodge cast iron cookware, it comes with a recipe book that's very helpful, and it gives you a baseline to work from with some different things. And generally what you do, like with the number 10, double that number. That's how many coals that you're going to need. And take 20 coals. Now what I've discovered, and this is my own personal preference and my own experience with the number 10, when it says take 20, depending on 20 briquettes, depending on what I'm cooking, generally I'll add a few to that number. Not many, like with the number 10, instead of using 20. And what I'm doing right now, I'm using 24 briquettes. And you put 1/3 of them underneath, and then situate the rest of them on the top. Now, depending on what you're cooking, if you're baking something, it's really important to do it. With what I've got going on here, it's not so important. But if you're baking some type of cake or some type of dessert meal in this cast iron, you'll definitely need anyway, anytime you're cooking with these, get you a lid lifter. They make a whole lot of, they're very convenient. But if you're baking something like a dessert dish, a cake or whatever, every 15 minutes or so you want to rotate that lid, and you also want to rotate the whole works. You want to give it a little turn. And what that does, it keeps the iron heated evenly and gives you a better outcome. But what I'm doing right now, I really don't need to worry too much about that. I'll turn that lid every now and then, and I'll just let it do its thing. Charcoal. I've used every brand out there, and if I'm going to use what I call cheater, rather than build a fire and manufacture my own coals to cook with, if I'm going to do any serious cooking in a cast iron Dutch oven, there's only one brand of charcoal that I will buy. And here, this company is not paying me a dime either. I'm just giving you some free information to help you in your cooking experience. And what I've discovered about charcoal, if you're going to do cast iron Dutch oven cooking, go ahead, pass up the cheap stuff and go ahead and buy your Kingsford. Kingsford burns longer. It's just a better charcoal for doing this kind of thing. If you're just going to burn a hot dog on a grill or burn some, do something quick like that, use whatever you want to. But I'm just telling you from experience, if you're going to play with the Dutch ovens, go ahead and use the Kingsford. You'll be glad that you did. I was going to tell you about this crazy table. That saw blade is welded to a pulley that the hub is splined in order to fit on a shaft that is splined. And this is a contraption. When I told you the other day, that other video that I made about how we came up poor in this world, this is a contraption that my dad made on our little hardscrabble farm that would mount to the side PTO shaft of an old Farmall Super C tractor. And he built a framework that set around this blade, and we would go out into the woods there on the farm and we would cut firewood, logs, and my dad would cut them no longer than he and I could handle ourselves, between the two of us. And we had a little two-wheeled cart that pulled behind the tractor, and we would go to a pile of logs, firewood, and my dad and I, he would feed that log into this blade by hand. And unless it was a heavy piece, if it was something that he could handle one-handed, he would simply throw it over his shoulder into that two-wheeled cart. If it was too heavy to do that with, he'd feed it through and just simply let it drop to the ground. And then at some point when the blade wasn't spinning, we would clean that up and put it in the little two-wheel cart. And that's the way we heated our house in the wintertime. And that's the way we procured the wood to heat our house. So it's kind of a family heirloom. I don't want to lose it, and it makes it good. I wouldn't want to use it like we used it on the farm when I was a kid growing up, but it makes a really neat table to set that cast iron on and put the coals on, because it can't catch anything on fire. Charlie and I love living out here in these woods. That rain came through in a hurry. Very little warning. And I think it's just a reminder that don't go willy-nilly into the woods. If you don't have what you need to protect yourself in an environment that most people are not familiar with anymore, you're going to get wet, you're going to get, there's a lot of things that can happen. And there's times of the year that getting wet could be worse than uncomfortable. It could be tragic. And it doesn't take long for hypothermia to set in. We're fortunate in this part of the world that you don't hear a lot about people experiencing health problems as a result of hypothermia, but you hear more about people experiencing health problems as a result of hyperthermia because of the extreme heat and the extreme humidity. We're in a subtropical environment, and you've got to respect what's going on in your environment and what your body is telling you in that environment, and know how to cope with it, know how to deal with it. One of the things that I had to do, I checked that meat, and it's done, but it's not as tender as I want it to be. And so I was, just as that rain was hitting, I put a few more coals in that old kitchen style Dutch oven, and got them going, and I added them to the pot to give me a little more cooking time on that pig meat. Appreciate you hanging around with me out here in the storm and everything. I'm going to take this in the cabin and prepare some sides to go with it. And me and the Queen, we're going to dine sumptuously. Thanks for hanging around, folks. Appreciate you watching. See you on the next one.